Hello, welcome back to another, I'll be honest, slightly scuffed episode of a weekly Waypoint. Today, we are playing or attempting to play TOCA Touring something. Wait, hang on a minute, I've forgotten the title of the damn game. TOCA World Touring Cars, it's called TOCA World Touring Cars. And anyone who played PAL, PlayStation 1 games and was into racing games back in the 90s, I guess this was the early 2000s, might be like, wow, this game. And other people from across the sea, or people who maybe didn't play this game, are probably like, who, not to worry, factoids to the rescue. In America, this was called Jarrett and LeBont Stock Car Racing, and honestly, I think we got the better title. Now, I said it was slightly scuffed, so here's the warning. Epilepsy warning, I guess, because we're emulating this game. I do own it, but in order to record it, I emulated it, and some games do not like being emulated. Like, don't get me wrong, PS1 games, very easy to run, usually. You can boost them to the max and everything. You can, like, upscale them and shit, and it's fine. But some games, regardless of the settings, just do not like being emulated, and this is one of those games. However, I think it is borderline playable, so we're gonna go with it. You may be wondering, Christian, if it's so difficult to run, why are you running it in this, like, super upscaled fashion? Well, it might not look super upscaled to you, but trust me, it is. And to that I say, it actually runs better this way. Believe it or not, it does. And don't worry, it does even out after like 10 or so seconds whenever races start. Apart from the last race, Laguna Seca was. Oof, we're including it. Now, why are we playing TOCA Touring Race World Championship Car Edition Bonanza, whatever it's called? Well, Forza Motorsport is coming out soon, and I thought I was going to record some Forza Motorsport 7 footage for you all, but as it turns out, I'm in the middle of an SUV championship, and SUV racing is pretty fucking boring. So I thought to myself, what were some of my childhood Forza games? I wasn't an Xbox kid. In fact, I kind of predated the Xbox, which is starting to make me sound like an old man. What racing games did I have as a kid? And we've already revisited loads of them over the course of the weekly Waypoint, and we'll continue to go back and revisit them, because there's other tracks you haven't seen yet, and I like playing those games. But this was not my game. This was my dad's game. I didn't care about this game because it didn't have power-ups, and it looked a little bit boring. But now that I'm a grown-up, and I find boring racing games enjoyable, I was like, I want to see what a boring racing game was like in the early 2000s, or the late 90s. When did this come out? The year 2000. There was a Game Boy Advance version! So yeah, this was my dad's game. In fact, I don't even think it was my dad's game. I think it's my dad's mate's game, and in true kind of like doesn't play a lot of video games, grown up kind of a fashion, he handed it over to my dad and was like, you should play this, it's way better than Gran Turismo. Way better than Gran Turismo. To be fair, this game has cosmetic damage on your cars. You don't get that in Gran Turismo, do you? So yeah, I'm excited for Forza Motorsport. It's the next game that's coming out that I'm excited for. I know I made some noise about the Crew Motorfest before that was coming out, back when I was playing the Crew 2 a couple of months ago, but I don't know, man. It kind of feels like they've taken away everything that made the Crew special and just kept in the things that made it a rival to Forza Horizon. And when you're just a rival to Forza Horizon and you're called the Crew, you're not going to win that battle, I'm afraid. I'm sure I'll check it out at some point when it goes on sale for the price of a packet of crisps and a lemonade. But for now, I don't really fancy forking out my entire monthly gaming budget on a budget Forza Horizon clone. There is a 5-hour free trial, but I don't want to get hooked. So anyway, aside from Forza Motorsport hype and playing old games which are in the Forza sphere and clearly are very dated and haha, look how funny it is. Also, by the way, it's still kind of pretty fun. What else happened this week? The Nintendo Direct, and I have thoughts. Everyone, get ready, prepare yourselves, because I have thoughts about the Nintendo Direct that we just witnessed. I am not a Nintendo fan right now. No, seriously, I remember when I first got my Switch, and it was before I got my PS4, I think? And it was before I had my Xbox, obviously. This was long before the Series S came out. And I wanted everything on the Switch. I wanted all of the ports. I wanted all of the remasters. I wanted all of the remakes. I wanted everything to be on the Switch, for the Switch was the perfect console. And it's all I wanted to play video games on. And that lasted about a year or two. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I don't have a really good track on time. I vaguely remember wishing for Ratchet & Clank to be ported to the Switch, obviously knowing that would never happen because it's a Sony property. But being like, wouldn't it be cool though? Like, wouldn't it just be cool though? Anyway, I loved the earlier directs in the Switch's life cycle. Every single one was like Christmas, and I think it still is for people who use the Switch as their main console. I follow some Nintendo-centric people on Twitter. I follow some Nintendo-centric YouTube channels, but I am starting to realize that I do not necessarily identify as a Nintendo-centric person these days, and have not for a while, because this direct was lots of remasters and ports and remakes, and boy was it underwhelming. And I did the equivalent of saying as much and looking around the room and realizing I was the only one here not having a good time. People were so fucking happy to see Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, and to be fair, important context, I've never played that game, but also looking at the visuals of a remake, I'm just like, I fine with the original. I just go grab the original. It's fine. I'll just like emulate it or something. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not gonna be a problem. Honestly, I think in regards to emulating my own legally obtained ROMs, I have broken out of the cycle of wanting remasters of old games, and you know, I used to find it obnoxious back when I did only rely on publishers to unvault their historic titles. I found it obnoxious when people did cut in with, why don't you just emulate it? I'll be like, because I don't fucking want to, and you know, that's still valid. However, now as someone who has finally run out of patience and just fucking takes matters into his own legal hands, it's very like, I feel like I'm on the outside perspective of that now, and it feels very like, oh, you're cheering for this, okay, this is yeah, they need to do a better job of game preservation, and they need to not just make it something that they decide to sell you at their behest at full price. But it's making people happy, and I'm not gonna fucking sit here on my high horse and say that they shouldn't be happy about it, because, let's be honest, if I owned a PS5 and they announced another remaster trilogy of the original Ratchet & Clank games, none of this would be valid. I would just be jumping for joy. If they announced a PC port of said remasters, oh man. To be fair though, Ratchet & Clank is another one of those games that just fucking hates being emulated, and that is so unfortunate for me. Anyway, besides being a little bit nonplussed by the Nintendo Direct, what else happened this week? Well, I started Sea of Stars. I'm only a few hours in, but I finally decided, you know what, Starfield? I'm really happy with where I'm at in that game right now. I'm happy to start kind of slowing down, spending less time with it every day. My kind of tug towards that game has lessened. Why does that sound euphemistic? Time to dip my toes into something new, and I dipped my toes into Sea of Stars. And yeah, I've never played Chrono Trigger. That's also on my to-play list. But what I love about Sea of Stars is that while, and I'm sure millions of people have already said this, but while it is nostalgic, while it is clearly meant to be harkening back to the SNES era of RPGs graphically, it's also modern graphically in terms of you have dynamic lighting effects, and you know, pixel sprites aren't necessarily limited to color palettes that they would have been back in the day, and so it's got all of that charm, and yet it's got a nice coat of modern paint to keep you satiated. The story seems pretty cool so far. The combat seems pretty cool so far. It's pretty engaging. It's pretty tactical. It's pretty tactile as well. Ooh, do I want to get like games journalistic about it and start calling things like, ooh, it's very tactile, ooh, it's very, ooh, this thing in a game is ephemeral, these high concepts about a video game. Sorry, I'm very jaded this week, apparently. I read one too many puff pieces about Todd Howard. I love Todd Howard, don't get me wrong, I love Todd Howard, but there are these weird journalistic outlets that I'm pretty sure are not like games journalistic outlets. Not that they have to be to talk about video games. Let's not start gatekeeping. But like these like really posh kind of hoity-toity journalistic magazines for rich people, and like let's just say I once read an interview with David Cameron that feels like it could have been copy-pasted into this interview with Todd Howard, like weird things like focusing on fine details, like, oh, and then we went out to lunch, and oh, the person I'm interviewing had this. That says a lot about this person, doesn't it? Oh, he points out this thing in his office to me. I really like this, he says. It's clear where the influences come from. Like, I don't know, the way it's fucking written is it's like, it's not human. It's weird. I get icky about it. I don't know. I guess that's been moulding around in my subconscious. Moulding around? I guess that's been in the primordial goop in my head, waiting to burst out for a while. God, I'm full of metaphors today. Guild Wars 2, bet you thought I forgot about that game. No, I had not. I purchased the Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire expansions for Guild Wars 2, even though I'm still only level 35, because obviously a lot of that stuff is horizontal, and now I can run around on my dinosaur, and also I have more character slots, and I'm not limited in certain ways in that game, so I'm continuing my adventures through that game. For those of you who have not seen, I am playing, my first character is a Mesmer. It is a Sylvari, and I've been playing through that storyline and enjoying it. However, I also, for some upcoming Dimension Jam content, go to youtube.com/Dimension Jam if you want to see what I'm talking about. I rolled a Guardian, that's what they're called, God. I rolled a Norn Guardian, and I'm a little bit astonished because I looked up, I just really wanted to play like a big two-handy sword man in heavy plated armor, and I looked up like the most fun classes in Guild Wars 2, and I looked for a few lists, and it seems to primarily be Mesmer, and like, I've forgotten. But Mesmer was up there, and truth be told, I'm not sure I love Mesmer in Guild Wars 2, because I was like, I don't know that I love Guild Wars 2 combat, and then I played two-handed sword Guardian, and I'm having much more fun, and Guardian isn't mentioned anywhere on these websites as like one of the best classes in the game, but I'm having a fucking fantastic time as a Guardian. Now, with the way classes work in Guild Wars 2, I'm pretty sure that you know, Guardians can probably be like the healers as well as like the tanks and stuff. But yeah, I need to really delve back into my Mesmer. Maybe it's because I'm using a sword and an offhand pistol, because the weapons you choose like affect what main abilities you're going to be using. So maybe I need to like choose a different weapon. Maybe it's that combination of weapon that, like, it's fine, it's not bad, I'm having a decent time with it, but I'm also not like, you know, moment to moment having a fantastic time in combat, you know? I think the problem with Guild Wars 2 in terms of leveling and story is that the personal story, I believe it's called, where you're pursuing like your racial storyline and some things that you chose in your character traits as backgrounds kind of play into like which quests you get as well, it seems. When you're doing that, it's really fun and really interesting, and then when you've got like to grind 7 more levels to continue that storyline, and you've got to do it by doing like these world quest style hearts out in the open world, I can only get through a couple of those before I start to get bored and it starts to get repetitive. I don't know, maybe I should just completely ignore all story associated with them and like slam on a podcast and just treat it like I'm grinding out a new tune in WoW or something, but I kind of don't want to do that because this is my first character and it's me approaching this new world for the first time. So, I don't know, I'm having mixed feelings about Guild Wars 2 so far, but I do feel like when I get to a higher level and we get to that kind of like living world, oh, that's what I was going to fucking talk about, I forgot, but when we get to that like living world content and that expansion content and it's going to be more like story focused, I'll probably have a slightly better time then. One thing I was not too pleased to learn about was the way they, like, so the living world seasons, there's 5 seasons, 4 of them you have to pay to play them, and that's fine. It feels a bit like paying for individual patches, which is a bit weird. The game doesn't have a subscription fee, so it's okay, but I don't know, it's a lot of financial stuff ahead of me as a new player, and it feels a little bit intimidating for my wallet. Not a huge fan of how they're managing that system, but hey, my adventures in Guild Wars 2 will continue, the videos and just my personal adventures. I just threw 30 quid down for Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire, so it'd be silly for me not to continue my adventures, right? That would be silly of me. Oops, I've been mainlining Necromancy and RuneScape for the last few days. I'm not very good at this. Oh, speaking of which, I mean, you can see it in the RuneScape videos. I unlocked Hermod. He's fun. He's a fun boss fight in RuneScape. He's got like 2 moves, and that's about as much RAM as my brain has to handle with boss fights. That's why I don't play Dark Souls. I enjoy Hermod. Anyway, this has been a bit of a all over the place one. I do apologise. Hope you enjoyed TOCA touring something. I'll see you next week. Oh, and here's my first attempt at recording TOCA touring championship. Oh, good lord. This one is not running very well. Wow. This looks so bad. Christ. No. 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 No.